need to talk to you about writing. You're a talented writer too, Jessica. Jessica McCune is in the studio, and she has become a friend of ours. She even gave me a ride to my car one time.
Yeah, on a dark night.
Jessica is a registered nurse, and I don't know what the other initials mean.
Licensed mental health counselor.
Oh, thank you. And you are with Hospice of Marion County. You're an inspirational speaker, a storyteller. Is your husband John? Is he a
Jim?
Jim here, storyteller.
He has a lot of stories to tell. He hasn't embraced the Florida Story Association yet, but he's a natural storyteller. Yes, Jim is amazing.
I knew his name was Jim. I don't know why I said John.
It's okay.
The 35th celebration of Hospice of Marion County is coming up November 5th. Oh gosh, okay. My mom and dad both benefited from hospice, and you guys were outstanding. I don't know how we would have got through it. I'm sure I tell you that every time I see you.
Well, those are good words I love to hear, and if it's ever contrary to that, I want to hear that as well. But yes, we have been celebrating our 35th anniversary all year long, and we're culminating that on November the 5th. But first, I want to talk about the Wolfelt seminar that's coming up next
What's
Monday.
it called?
Well, Dr. Alan Wolfelt from Colorado is coming next Monday and Tuesday, and he is a world expert on grief and recovering from loss. He has the Center for Loss and Life Transition in Colorado. Roberts of Ocala is bringing him here, and we are partnering with them to make this available to the community for free. I traveled to see him to Lakeland last December. He comes every year to the Lakeland community to teach about bereavement and loss, and the Roberts team, Josh Leverett, and Tammy and I got in a car and drove down there, and he's excellent. And Josh knew him because Dr. Wolfelt authored all the books they use in the degree he has for mortuary science. So he is a prolific author, Dr. Alan Wolfelt. He is great about support, emotional support, helping people navigate through grief and mourning, which are two very different journeys. And I'm thrilled that he's coming here Monday night, the 29th of October, 7 to 9 for free at Roberts Memorial Chapel. That's in downtown Ocala. It's at 606 Southwest 2nd Avenue in their Memorial Chapel. It's just one block from our downtown post office on the north end. So he will be talking about the myths of grief. He'll be talking
the myths of grief.
The myths of grief. Did you know there are false beliefs out there about myth? It's amazing.
What
and
are
we
they?
work so hard to dispel these myths. Grief and mourning are different, but yet people think they're the same experience. Another myth is that the process of grief is predictable, and you can have a timeline, and after a year you should be over this, and you should be through with this.
Oh, okay, yeah. That one I believe is a myth, yeah.
That is not true. Another one is it's best to move away from grief and mourning instead of toward it. That is not true. A lot of people want to deny it or just think time will heal it. I just won't talk about it. And it's much more valuable to embrace the journey and move towards it and embrace it and accept it. So that's something we work against.
I can see that, yeah.
And some people think tears are a sign of weakness. That is not true. Tears are a sign of compassion. They're a sign of love. And they're a sign of growth and of hurt.
Yeah, I can see
Very
all that
positive.
too. Yeah, okay.
And another one he talks about is that some people think the goal is to get through it. And really, like so many treasures in life, the goal is to add it to your life, to embrace it, that it becomes part of you. I always think of the quote by Joseph Campbell, "The cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek." Want me to say it again?
I'm thinking about it.
Okay.
The cave you fear to enter holds
the cave we fear to enter.
So enter it, and then the treasure.
The treasure's there.
That's interesting.
And another way to say it is the fear is much worse than the actual experience or emotion. Our fear of grief, our fear of mourning, our fear of loss is a paper tiger. It's much worse than going through the experience, going into the cave, and getting the treasure.
Do you know when you say embrace the grief and embrace the mourning? I have there's a lady I know over in Crystal River, and her husband died unexpectedly, and she has a job, and so I saw her post on Facebook, and it said something to the extent, something like this. nobody knows at work that the person I used to be is now an act, because the person inside is right now the real person I am. So, in other words, I took that to mean that before he died, the person she was at work was real. That was the real person. And now at work, she really would rather not be there, probably. She's kind of sad because of everything, and it's still new for her. But she's actually acting the way they know her to be, so that they can kind of get the job done. So
she is being, and I say this in an objective term with no judgment or criticism, but she is acting. She's pretending like everything's okay.
Right.
And
right.
It sounds like she's afraid to be different than she was before, to acknowledge that it is different, that he's gone.
Yeah.
And one of the tragedies is when someone has a loss, everyone says, "How are you doing? How are you doing?"
Well,
and people say, "I'm okay.
Yeah.
I'm doing okay." No, it is good to ask how you're doing.
Okay.
That is wonderful. And other people don't ask because they don't know what to say. And they're afraid, oh my gosh, what if they start crying? And so they don't say anything, and that's very hurtful, very hurtful. So yes, ask how they're doing. But when someone says, "I'm doing okay," resist the temptation to believe them and try to probe, because if someone says they're doing okay, like your friend in Crystal River with her work colleagues, then everybody believes it.
You know, I presume that there are some people she works with that are closer to her than others. And those people probably see it. You know, they probably know what's really going on. It's kind of like here. I mean, radio station is so close. When Joe lost Patsy, not even a year ago now, I mean, we all knew this was a huge.
And you probably have a very close, healthy, supportive, emotional relationship.
And yet there are folks who come in and out of the radio station who aren't that close.
Exactly.
Who, of course, he has to be the Joe that they would have known, kind of an exterior person, right? Does that make sense?
Yes, and that's another thing that Dr. Wolfett spends a lot of time talking about is he has a companioning model, and how to companion someone going through a loss, how to be a companion to your friend in Crystal River, and how to be a caregiver to someone that is mourning or grieving. And we might be fortunate enough to know how to be a caregiver for someone who's physically ill, but it is slightly different to be a caregiver for someone who's going through an emotional loss. And of course, there are all kinds of losses: the loss of a loved one, the loss of a job, the loss of our youth, the loss of our health, the loss of children. And your friend lost him unexpectedly. A lot of grief is expected. They are in a terminal or catastrophic disease. There might be a glacial decline, but there is grieving all along the way, but you can't do it ahead of time. It's still going to be...
That's what I always think, too, those who die abruptly, suddenly, and then those who've been, like my father, went from Father's Day to Thanksgiving. That's how long it took for him to pass away.
That's really not that long.
Oh, really? From what you've seen?
Well, some people... like dementia and Alzheimer's.
Oh, right.
Takes, and then you've lost the person that was, and then you are caregiving, and that's a tremendous stress. So that you're grieving because your life is completely changed, and you're now a caregiver full time. And then eventually, when the death occurs and the actual loss of life, there is still much to do, and that catches people by surprise because they're like, "I've been doing this for 3 years."
Do you know what I wonder? I wonder, and maybe this doctor could answer the question. Am I right in referring to him as a doctor?
Yes, Dr. Alan Wolfelt.
Okay, so somebody who has studied this, I wonder if, like, his information, his books, if I absorb what he is saying and writing now, like before I'm in a state of grief, is it more effective later on when I'm in grief as opposed to reading his books like while I'm grieving? You know what
absolutely.
I mean?
There's so much to learn about it. It's peeling back the onion. I think obviously this is my line of work that I've chosen. I think it's very rewarding. And he calls it so beautifully, let me use his words, the capacity to love requires the necessity to mourn. And so you can read his books and start learning about it now. And I believe we'll be learning about it our entire lives. I think joy and sorrow are like every wave that washes up on the beach. It's the same.
You're a poet.
I wish. The wave washes up on the beach and it recedes. It washes up and recedes. It washes up and recedes all day long. And it's joy and sorrow, two sides of the same coin. Yeah. And we need to embrace both of them, learn about both of them, not be afraid of it, to increase our capacity to love. In my opinion.
Yeah, it's hard. It's a hard pill to swallow, though, right? So, sometimes when somebody goes through severe Alzheimer's, I was watching this thing on Tim Conway. I guess he's going through that right now. Did you hear that? And I wonder. This is maybe cold. I don't know, but it's maybe a better way to go, because all of a sudden you're just disappearing. You're fading. The people who love you, it's still hard. But I'm thinking for you, I wonder.
No, I think it's very hard. I think there's an awareness that they are not able to keep up mentally with what they used to. And of course, they need to prepare. We know public figures that retire from public life and they say goodbye. And not everyone needs to do that because they don't have a public following. The movie Still Alice was beautifully done about a brilliant educator at Columbia. It's a fiction book, but it was a movie, and losing her capacity, and very tragic, and she was very aware of it.
So at hospice, is that part of what you do? You have to work with folks who are, like, if you have somebody in hospice who's also an Alzheimer's person.
We do.
So that your work is mostly with the family, it sounds like.
Well, families and patients. Our clients. Our job is to support them. Their wishes are paramount. We want them to be comfortable. We want them to feel better, live better every day of their lives. And then, of course, that involves their families caring for them. And so, yes, we deal with loss all the time, and there are a lot of kernels of gold in there, and there's also a lot of challenges trying to keep them comfortable.
You mentioned that we shouldn't avoid saying how you're doing and that kind of thing. As a community, especially as we get to the holiday season, we get together, these little singing groups or these little pets, and we'll visit the nursing homes and stuff. Do people ever do that with hospice? Do people show up and sing Christmas carols and that kind of thing, or is it?
We are flooded with a lot of requests and volunteers. We want to do what's best, in our hospice.
What is best? That's
it's different with everyone.
Yeah.
It's different with everyone, and we work with that and spend a lot of time trying to make that work for families, for clients. We have 3 hospice houses, but the majority of people want to die at home. So I think 72 to 75% of our clients do choose to live their lives out where they call home, and that might be their physical home, their independent home, an assisted living, or even in a skilled nursing facility. But Dr. Wolfett, in addition to what we've talked about, and of course you can tell we could talk for a long, long, long time about this, also goes over the Bill of Rights for mourners. And
the Bill of Rights?
Yeah, there's 10 of them. But he has a lot of information. I can't recommend it highly enough. There are 2 sessions coming up next Monday night, 7 to 9. There'll be light snacks as you check in at Roberts of Ocala. They are bringing him, and we are so grateful. They work real hard to give a family touch, a sincere touch to families, and they are family owned and operated. But it's at 606 Southwest 2nd Avenue. And then on Tuesday morning, Dr. Wolfelt continues from 9 to 12 for our professional community, for chaplains, social workers, clergy, counselors, nurses, lay ministers. And I'm encouraging the public to come back. He is that good. But he's gearing the 2 different seminars for 2 different recipients, and that'll be 9 to 12 on Tuesday morning, October 30th, again at Roberts Chapel, Memorial Chapel here in downtown Ocala.
Do you know, when, I'm trying to think whose funeral it was. I was at a funeral. I think it might have been my grandmother, because it was a long time ago. But I remember the pastor was there, and there was something in the church sermon or whatever that says that when we die, there's many mansions waiting for us.
Well, that's a scripture in from the Bible.
Okay, okay. But here's what happened, Jessica. So I'm not a Bible scholar in any way, but I heard that somewhere, and so I was talking to the pastor, and I said, "Yeah, well, she's in one of those many mansions." He goes, "Well," and he kind of shrugged it off, like, "I'm not so sure there's any mansions." I'm thinking, "Oh my gosh, I don't know what to believe anymore." So.
Well,
I always thought I'd rather have a little cottage. I don't need a mansion.
Well, the Bible is full of parables, and there are many people that believe the Word of God is inerrant and it's all literal. Many pastors, the one you encountered, probably may not have such a literal interpretation. But I do believe that there is a place for us, and we will be completely taken care of, and they will be full of joy and glory and peace.
Well, if I get a mansion, I just hope I have a maid, because
you will have lots of friends around you that will love to be there, and you will all work together, and it will be great. I am quite confident of that. So,
can you imagine that, though? I mean,
well, there's a great book I have enjoyed so much called Visits from Heaven. So it's not about mansions, but a pastor I enjoy a lot lost his wife quite suddenly and traumatically. And as a scholar and as a minister, he began researching the Bible for every iota of information there was about heaven. And it is the dearest book, Visits from Heaven by Pete Dyson.
Did she visit him? Was it one of those?
Yes, And he believed it happened with God's permission, and it was all for the goal of helping him through this great journey of sadness and mourning.
Jessica, when you and I were in the production room recording, I had asked you about something, because I'd heard a story about it. What was it again? I can't remember. But it had something to do with somebody had passed, and they felt like they were visited by that person.
It was probably Pete Dyson.
Oh, I know what it was. It was the doctor who said she was in hospice, and he said to one of the nurses, she'll be fine. She'll probably have a little bit more time. And the nurse said, no, she's going to die soon. And he said, well, why would you say that? I just checked around. And she says, well, because she saw her mother, and that was her experience. Do you?
I've heard many situations at end of life where the person, as Dr. Wolfelt would say, the person transitioning, he has a Center for Loss and Life Transition, that they are visited by their ancestors, their loved ones that have gone on before them. I've heard that many times, that they come to escort them, and I think that is if a friend invites me over and if they're standing at their front door waiting for me to come in, I feel so welcome.
That's true, but have you ever been in the room with somebody who could see somebody that you couldn't see?
I have not, but close friends of mine have, and have told me about it, and I believe them.
That's comforting, though, isn't it?
Very, very comforting. Yeah. There's no fear. No fear.
Yeah. And is that everybody I've ever known that was in hospice was really not fearful? I don't remember anybody that was fearful of dying. They were all kind of accepting it.
Well, I think that's one of the myths. We're not to fear, and if we can get through the fear is often worse than the event we fear. And if we can push through our fear, then we're liberated. And once you're liberated, you're able to learn so much more.
I like the fact that hospice had the ornaments, and I would buy them every year.
We're bringing that back this year.
So, that's wonderful.
Lights for Love. So we'll kick that off here in the next few weeks.
Well, on that note, I always buy one, and here's why. Because you guys were above and beyond what any of us in my family could have done. And I'm sure it was a fortune to take care of my mom and dad. And the only way I can give back is a little bit at a time. So whenever I see you doing something like that, it's only $5 or whatever for an ornament, and just a little bit,
We love it. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. No, thank you.
And how do you decide who is a good candidate for hospice? Because a lot of the medical people do have caring hearts and everything, but you have to have somebody that's really above and beyond.
Oh, you mean for employees?
Yes.
Oh, employees.
Yes.
We work real hard at hiring our work staff. We have a great HR department, and they've been doing it 35 years, so they've kind of gotten pretty good at it.
Yeah, everybody I meet from hospital, it's almost like you are really angels. You're not really human.
We're very human. We are very, very human. We are very human, but we work very hard, and our mission is to provide extraordinary, compassionate care at end of life.
I have a friend in South Florida, in Naples, and he grew up in New York, and his father had lived in New York his whole life, and he recently got to that point where he needed to go to hospice. So he's down in Naples in hospice to be near his son. And I was up there with Robin, was it just a year ago? We were up in New York, and I said to Gary, I said, gosh, we were right by your house, your old house. I almost knocked on the door, and he said, well, I'm glad you didn't. My father would have shot you, because he at that point, he was starting to lose it, and he was afraid that if he didn't know who I was, that might have been the end of me. So does that happen? I mean, do you have people who are actually angry, or does that, because I heard that was one of the parts of Alzheimer's that can...
Yes, our clients are transitioning from this world, and they can face pain, discomfort, anxiety, anger, peace. And our job is to keep them comfortable. And that's what we take very seriously. And I know at the beginning we started out talking about our 35th celebration, and we've been doing it all year long, but the culmination is a week from Monday after the Wolfelt seminar. But on 11/5 at 10 at our Elliott Education Center, we are having Good Morning Marion County, and we are celebrating all things Hospice of Marion County, including our physicians that have been referring for 35 years. John Sharp made our first referrals to Hospice of Marion County, and he is still making referrals. He loves nature, birding, hikes. He built the garden between Estelle's and Sylvia's house, and that's such a whole person attitude of being handy and yet at the same time recognizing people that need support at end of life. And then Dr. David Elliott, oh my gosh, we named the Elliott Education Center after him, still making referrals to hospice, trained and studied under Cecily Saunders, the origin of the hospice movement in London at St. Christopher's. And how thrilling to hear his story. So we'll be telling stories about our thrift shops, our Pet Peace of Mind program, our pet therapy program, our chefs, our physicians, our nurses, all things Hospice of Marion County. The public is invited. Please come with your stories on November 5th, 10 o'clock, Elliott Education Center. And you can call me with any questions. Jessica McCune, 854-5231.
Jessica, I'm sorry, go ahead.
854-5231.
Can you tell us about the book? The book you brought in?
Yeah. I'm giving you a book because you have been our friend. Well, it's our 35th anniversary, so we have created a book for our employees, for our staff, for our donors, for our friends, for the public, and it is a Hospice of Marion County, a history of innovation, a mission of caring, a legacy of excellence, and it's our stories for the last 35 years. Lila Ivy put it together, interviewed a lot of, the volunteers, the original CEO, Mary Ellen Poe, our current CEO, and a vision for the future, a look back. So it's been real thrilling to watch it come together, and she did a great job.
Jessica, we will share that. We'll put it on the coffee table out in
You are our friend, so Lila said, take him a book. Take Robin and Larry a book. Thank you so much.
Well, tell everybody we said hi.
I will.
Over at Hospice, and thank you, Jessica, and say hi to Jim.
I will.
Tell him I'm sorry I said John.
I won't even mention it.
And I do love the hospice thrift stores. I mean, I shop there with my mom, and they're just absolutely outstanding.
They are, and the thrift stores will be there with models on the 5th. They contribute to our bottom line significantly, 5 to 10% of our bottom line, and that all goes to our charity care. So you're making a difference. Thank you.
Oh, wonderful.
Thank you, Jessica. Good to see you again.
Take care.
We'll be right back.
The OCA High School Game of the Week is presented by Fuquay Sawmill. The third-ranked Vanguard Knights improved to 8-0 after a big win against the Lake Weir Hurricane.
Vanguard switched your defense up. Now they got two high safeties, which at first they had everybody in the box. They're going to fake the handoff, a little play-action pass. He fires into the flats, and that's picked by Randall, and he's going to walk in for a touchdown. An ill-advised throw leads to 6 for the Knights.
Fuquay Sawmill is a custom hardwood sawmill